So today is going to be all about how you should move your sight, and more importantly, how much you should move your sight. So before we get started, I want you to let me know in the comments below how many clicks you would move your sight to get this group into the middle of the target. So let me know in the comments below for that. And now let's roll the intro and then get started with the video. So first of all, I'm going to go through the very simple way of knowing which way to move your sight to move your group to the middle. So if you know about this already, simply skip to the time that's displayed on the screen to move to the more advanced part. But now we're going to look at how to move your sight. Now to do this, I'm going to actually use this target face that I've got on the wall and show you exactly how you would move your sight using this. So let's move the camera and I'll show you how to do that. So here you can see we've got a target face and here is the sight, and this is what it would look like. So if you imagine you're aiming in the middle and then your arrows go high, 8. So you're aiming in the middle here and your arrows go high. In order to get your arrows to the middle, you would need to aim low 8. It's pretty simple, right? You aim in the middle, they go high. So to get them in the middle, you aim low. So now, what about if you want to still aim in the middle? Simply, when you're now aiming in this position, you just need to move your sight up, don't you? Because you want your sight on the middle while you're in this position and your arrows go to the middle. So to do this, you simply move your sight up. So the very simple way to remember this is if your arrows go up, you move your sight up on your sight bar, and then this makes you aim lower when you aim in the middle. And by aim lower, I mean it makes you move your bow lower when you're aiming in the middle. Likewise, if your arrows go left, you move your sight left, because then this will make you move your bow to the right to get the sight and the arrows in the middle. So it's very simple. You simply follow your arrows around the target. If your arrows are going high, you move your sight up. If the arrows are going down, you move your sight down. If your arrows are going left, you move your sight left. If your arrows are going right, you move your sight right. And if they're going low left, then you move your sight down and left, and so on. And obviously the amount you move your sight depends on where exactly the arrows go on the target. So this is basic sight theory, and this is how you move your sight around and get the correct adjustment. You can obviously aim off, like I said, depending on the conditions and depending on how much you need to aim off, it can be good to aim off. So if you're aiming in the middle and your arrows are going in the blue, then if it's only on 2 arrows out of every 6 that the arrow goes in the blue because of the wind, then maybe most of the time you aim in the middle, and then sometimes you check the wind and aim right blue, just for those 2 shots. So in that scenario, it might be better to aim off rather than move your sight and adjust for those arrows, and then you have to adjust for the other ones, and then it gets very complicated. So that just depends on the individual conditions and stuff like that. So that's basic sight movement explained. Here are some general tips that are really important to remember. First one is to make sure you move for your grouping, not for the arrow. So don't move your sight based on one arrow unless you're extremely confident and very, very experienced. Sometimes you'll see archers do this, Olympic archers on finals fields and stuff like that, but that's because they have to in that scenario and they don't have time to shoot a group. But especially if you're a beginner or even an intermediate archer, always move for the group and not individual arrows, because that can lead you astray, especially if it's a bad shot. So do not ever adjust your sight for a bad shot, because that's not going to be useful, is it? You shoot a bad shot, adjust your sight for it, and then all your good shots will not go in the middle. So that's going to be pretty useless. So definitely don't do that. And make sure you move your sight for your group. So another key point is that the horizontal movement and the vertical movement are not always the same. So what I mean by this is, for example, on this Shibuya sight, if you move 1 turn on the vertical track, it's 1 millimeter of movement, because this is the scale you've got on the side and it's based on millimeters, and that's the thread that they've got. But if you move 1 turn on the windage, it's actually an imperial thread here, and the windage for 1 turn is not 1 millimeter of movement. I can't remember the exact amount, but it's not 1 millimeter. So this means that if you have your arrow, for example, high left 8, you don't need to move your windage and your elevation the same amount to get it in the middle. You actually have to move them different amounts because the scale is different on each one. So check with your sight whether the scale is the same or not, and then work out whether you need to do the same adjustment or not for both ones. So that's a really important point, especially when it gets to, you know, fine movements and, you know, 70-meter shooting and stuff like that. So another thing to remember is that if you have your sight in the wrong place, scoring, in competition, whatever, it is a huge mistake. It just has a catastrophic impact on your score when there is no need for it to. You know, you could be shooting an awesome skill level and you have your sight in the wrong place and you're just destroying, you know, your chances of any score. You're just throwing points away. These are the easiest points you will ever get, is by moving your sight. You know, you spend hours and hours and hours working on your technique, making sure your arrows are correct, you know, making your equipment tuned and all that kind of stuff. If you then don't move your sight, there's just a massive waste of time. So get this correct to start with, because it's super important and it is the easiest points you'll ever get. And so many people don't move their sight correctly that you can have a massive advantage here. So really make sure that you understand that you need to be on top of your sight at all times. Now here's the thing with the size of the rings on the target as well. So you can see here, obviously, the target has the rings. What many people don't realize is that the size of the 10 ring, the width of the 10 ring, is the same width as the entire red. So if you shoot a group in the red left and you think, oh, it wasn't too bad, that must have just been me, I won't move my sight because they're all reds, they're not that well grouped. Just remember, the width of the red is the same width of the 10. So when you shoot a group in the red left and you think, oh, I won't move my sight, remember that's the same skill level as shooting a 60 in terms of the width. When you shoot a group the size of one band, so if you shoot all your arrows in the 8 ring, just in the 8, that's the size of the X. So make sure to understand how accurate you're shooting there. And this obviously shows you that if you shoot a group in the red or in the 8, you definitely need to move your sight, because it's not just chance that they all landed there. You should move your sight. So the actual size of the gold is actually the size of the red and the blue together is the size of the gold. So think about that. That's a really wide band. If you were shooting a group off center, you probably would think you're not shooting very well. You'd see maybe a couple of arrows in the red, a couple in the blue left. You'd think, well, what's going on? I'm not shooting very well. They're not grouping, but actually they're grouped width-wise in the size of the gold. So make sure that you understand this, and then when you go to move your sight or when you're shooting, you can see, oh, I've shot 3 arrows left in the blue. They're actually in the size of the 10. So I just need to move my sight and everything is good. So be clear on this part of how big the grouping is, and it will really help you be confident when you then move your sight as well. Now let's get to the question that was at the start of the video. How many clicks would you move your sight for that difference to get that group to the middle? So I've been at competitions before where I've been shooting with other archers, and there's one time in particular that I remember where this archer shot a group in the blue for a couple of ends in the row, and I didn't really want to say anything. And then I think after the 3rd or 4th end, I thought I just have to say it. I just have to say something, because this was a decent archer, and their whole group was just in the blue, and they're just throwing away points, like I mentioned. So I said to them, I think you're going to have to move your sight like 3-4 ends now. I've seen you shoot 5 or 6 arrows in this group here, and you know this group is actually the size of the gold effectively at 70 meters. So this is a good level archer, and I said to them, you know, you need to move your sight. And then I watched them go over to their sight, and then they went 1, 2, 3, 3 clicks to move the arrows from the blue to the gold. And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that, you know, that movement, they thought that that movement would get to the middle, but it actually turns out this is super common, because just a lot of people just haven't experimented with or haven't been taught the amount of movement that you need for the sight. So in this example, in the picture there, to get the arrows from the blue, I think they were roughly in the blue, to the gold, the number of clicks was 80. So that is 80 clicks. So 4 full turns of the sight to get the arrow from the blue to the gold. So In the example, the person doing 3 clicks might as well have not bothered, because as you can see, it doesn't really do anything compared to the amount you actually need to move. So when it comes to sight movement, it's always going to be more than you expect as a general rule. You could probably always at least double or quadruple the amount you expect and you still would be fine. So a great exercise to do is to get your group in the middle of the target, then just completely max out your windage, maybe do 4 turns on your windage, count how many clicks it is, see where the group goes, and then you can divide by the number of bands and find out how many clicks you need to move your sight per band of the target so that you can get your group in the middle more quickly. Now when it comes to competition, if you have the first arrow at a distance, or the start of the day and your first arrow lands high, or you have a group high or whatever, then to get that arrow from the red high, to get that group from the red high down to the gold, you need to move your sight 40 clicks, say. And then you can just go, okay, half a turn, 1 turn, 1.5, 2 turns, done. So it makes it much more easy, and you can be much more confident with how much you need to move your sight. And simply, you don't just waste ends and ends and ends of valuable points just throwing them down the drain because you haven't moved your sight. So be on top of it and realize how many clicks you actually need to move your sight. It's more than you expect. Finally, as a general point, in competition, if you start having up and down arrows, or your group is moving up or down, in general, if it's just sliding down or if it's going up for some reason, always check your sight is secure. Always check the bar is secure in the block on your bow, and always check the block is secure on your bow. Vertical movement like this is probably the most common kind of cause of groups moving up and down like that in a big way, and it's super easy to check. Every couple of ends you should just kind of grab your sight, check it's secure on the bow, and then that rests your mind at ease. It's generally a lot harder for the group to move left and right because there's just less variance, and up and down errors are often caused by equipment in this case, and the most common cause of this equipment failure is the sight moving. So make sure the dial is turned down, the sight is secure, make sure the block is on the bow properly. So that's been a complete overview of how you should move and how much you should move your sight. So I hope that's been useful. I hope you were somewhat surprised by the amount of movement that you actually need. And as always, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll put the links to social media down below. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.